How's it going? Welcome back to the hangar. Today I'm going to do some beginner TIG welding techniques, but not just me. I actually have a beginner with me. My nephew Jesse is new into welding, and he's never TIG welded before, and he asked me if he can if I can show him some techniques. So why don't you guys learn with us? So to start, Jesse, this is the machine we're going to be using. This is Everlast 210 EXT. It's a square wave inverter and has a whole bunch of fancy stuff that we're not even going to use. When you start with TIG, there's basically two modes that you'll weld on, AC and DC negative. So the way this machine works is up here, you'll just press a button and this is your AC form. So AC is for aluminum,
okay,
and then it'll either be DC. So as a beginner, I recommend using no pulse, nothing fancy, just as basic as it can be. We're going to be using a foot pedal as well, and the foot pedal is going to control your heat. So let's turn the machine on. So right now it's set at 41 amps, okay? So we can turn the amperage up and down. When you hit the pedal there, it will max out at that set amperage, but it will dial it back to whatever it is. So from there, this is your torch, okay? So for this style cup is called a gas lens. So if you look inside there, there's a little filter.
Okay.
And that helps and give you more gas coverage. The cap on the back allows excess tungsten to come in. I like to sharpen both sides because I know what's in my welder and stuff like that. So it just saves me trips back and forth from the belt sander or the grinder. So to start, we're not even gonna worry about fill rod. And I'm gonna show you what a pass looks like, fuse welding, and then you're just gonna practice running some stringers. We will get to the point of adding fill, and we will do that, but right now, the best way that I've found to learn and to teach is to just start worrying about how the puddle works. And once you know the puddle, then we'll add fill into it, and then start getting those dimes. So first things first, I'm gonna turn the heat up because the material we're welding is 3/16 stainless. If I'm completely perpendicular to the metal, I call that 90 degrees.
Yes.
Okay? If I start going this way back and forth, that's my angle. This is my inclination because my direction of travel is going to run length down the... So I like to keep my angle at 90 degrees, and I like to bring about 25, 30 degrees inclination. Bring it down, bring your mask down. I just get the pedal, I'm wide open. So now you see how that puddle is kind of liquid and you can even see it like circulating around? That's how you know when you're getting good fusion and you just want to start going. And I'm not worried about doing anything fancy.
Nope.
Okay? I'm just going nice and smooth.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the outside of the puddle. The outside of the puddle will tell you how fast to go. For me. The puddle, as it gets hotter, it's going to get wider. If you're going too slow, your puddle's going to be wide. You can keep a nice steady arc by looking at the outside of your puddle. So now, that was just a nice steady one. So now I'm going to do a little bit what we call steps. Fuse, and I'm just going to go forward and back a little bit, forward and back a little bit. Much like your stick welding.
Yes.
Okay? So have a look. And try to keep them consistent. Looking at the outside of my puddle. As that tells me, oh, right there, it's the same thickness, I move. Right, you see?
Yep. Back and forth.
And then when I back off the pedal, I back off slowly. So here we have nice and smooth, nice and consistent, easy to clean up. This one's a little more aesthetically pleasing with the steps in it.
Yeah.
Both pretty consistent, pretty even. Okay? So now why don't you get set up how you would like to weld? Set yourself up for success. Okay? Make yourself comfortable. That's one of the first things in welding. If you have something you can utilize to make your weld better, do it. It's not cheating. Jesse just asked me a question. What's the best way to hold this, he asked. Any way that is comfortable for you, okay? I like that, how you're kind of holding it right there. That's how I prefer to do it. Now, one thing that you want to do a dry run for where your weld's going to be, okay? just make sure that the torch, the cable, your sleeve, your arm, your glove, nothing's going to catch on something that could possibly be in the way. Okay, and wide open on the pedal. If you touch the tungsten, just let go of the pedal, and then we'll clean up the tungsten after. Just like you did there. That happens. It's gonna happen. That's gonna happen a lot. So now you kind of know that. Let's try a little bit of dipping here. And I'm gonna draw a diagram for you and these people as well, if anybody actually watches this shit. So, if you're looking at a weld puddle, okay, it's going to kind of circulate around like that, okay? And it's going to be circulating, and then you throw in some fill rod. Well, then you're going to watch it bubble up, okay? And this is even more prominent with aluminum. I'm going to get a better Sharpie. So it's even more prominent with aluminum. So then you get a bubble up like that. Well, then you're going to move your torch a little bit down. So here's my metal that we're welding, and we get a bubble up like that. Well, now it's going to start kind of getting concave down here because we're moving along too. So then you throw in a dip. It bubbles up. You start moving. It kind of gets concave. You throw in a dip, bubbles up, concave. Dip, bubble, concave. Dip, bubble, concave. And that's how you get your nice dime stacks, kind of like that. So I hope that kind of a little bit of a visual reference actually helps you guys. So now we just kind of talked about how we dip, move, etc., right? So I have half of this weld from before. I'm going to kind of just finish off this T-joint and show you guys, okay? So now, when we have a T-joint, I want to make sure my angle is in between the two, so around 45 degrees, okay. And then I still want to add a little bit of inclination, okay? So I'm going to leave a bit of a gap between where I was before to now. So I get that heat going. There's my puddle circulating around. I dip, it gets bigger. Move. Concave, dip, move. Dip, concave, dip. Let the post flow help cool a weld down, okay? And so when I'm doing this, I want to keep my torch movement consistent. I want to keep the amount of filler material consistent as well too. Okay. And that consistency is kind of key on this stuff, all right? So that was just a T-joint that I practiced. You practice on this, okay? All right, Jesse just made some good progress there. This one's all him. So you can see that coloring. There's a little bit too much heat input there. Yeah. Right? You can see the puddles really kind of flat and expanded. Mm-hmm. And then you get down here and you're starting to find your consistency. And then you get down here and you start getting those nice colorings and stuff. That's really good, man. That's good. Do a couple more practice passes there. Okay. Then we'll move on to a T-joint. right, Jesse just had some actually really good welds. So he just finished off with that one. But he started to notice that no matter how little heat he put into it, it was still kind of coming out black. So that's where he ran away on the time lapse, is he went and quenched the piece of metal, came back, and then actually got one with nice coloring and stuff like that too. So it was a pretty good example to see it in person. So now we're going to go on the T-joint here. So like I said, you want your angle about 45 degrees, kind of in the middle, and you want to add a little bit of inclination. Now, something you can do is add a little more inclination than you actually think you need. And remember, get the puddle going, then add your fill rod, then move, puddle, dip, move, etc. One of the things about when you're just starting out with TIG welding, it's frustrating, it's fun, it's tricky, but once you get it, it kind of clicks. So stick with it and just keep practicing. So this is his very first T-joint ever for stainless TIG. And you know what? It's not bad, man. But when I put my lid on and I was watching him, one thing that he was doing is he was kind of resting the fill rod by the tungsten. If you're too close, then it's going to kind of ball up on your fill rod, and then it's going to want to drop off and then run back to your puddle and do that kind of stuff. So when you're welding, you want to kind of keep your fill rod away and then actually put it into the puddle. Don't hammer it in, you know, but just touch the puddle when it's liquid. If you go too slow and you're kind of just hanging out by there, you're going to watch a puddle form on the end of your fill rod. Yeah. Or a ball form, or sorry. All right, so Jesse just finished his very first T-joint. I'm so proud. Not bad. It's actually pretty good. Just want to kind of point out a couple things here. So if you look at mine in comparison, and you just see kind of my more even stacks or dime stacks, move, 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 keeping the torch movement consistent and your fill rod consistent will get you that. But if you look at the end of mine there compared to the end of yours here, yeah, that is where you see the color distortion really starting to grow.
Yeah, you had a pretty even, like, burnt kind of thing.
Yeah, and the reason that is when you get to the end, there's less material. Yeah. So this whole material is getting hot, 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 hot. So you need to back off your heat just a little bit. Just start feathering it back to compensate, just so the weld doesn't, like the material doesn't get too hot. And I don't even have to have my welding mask on to actually see, because on the back side, I can see your puddle travel across the back, and I'm watching it get bigger and hotter and bigger and hotter, and you're looking for a consistency with that too. Yeah. So we're just gonna move on to some aluminum here. And aluminum is much like the stainless that we were just doing, okay? It can be fused, yes. Okay? Now, the thing is, when you fuse aluminum, it's not as strong, okay? So you really have to kind of pick and choose what you're actually doing, all right? So I like to set things up, especially when I'm TIG welding, for corner to corner. A really nice, even gap. Aluminum TIG on a T-joint, it takes practice, it takes a lot of heat, okay, and it takes a little more skill set to bang it off nicely.
What about a lap joint?
Lap joints, it takes more heat, but you can still do it kind of well as a beginner, okay? So as a beginner, practice corner to corner. This is 1/8 aluminum, so all I'm gonna do, I don't need that much tungsten hanging out for aluminum. I kind of like my tungsten in a little bit more. Personal preference, nothing wrong with either. Yeah. Okay. So we're set at about 118 amps, and I'm going wide open on the pedal. We're still using our 332 tungsten. I think this is the purple E3 tungsten, so it works well on inverter machines. And so all I'm gonna do is the exact same thing as what we've done before. I'm just gonna fuse this, okay? Little circles, little steps. Now I'm backing my heat off when I get to the edge. And you see kind of what I was talking about. I backed the heat off really fast at the end, and I did that on purpose because you see that little divot now in the aluminum.
pinhole.
So I'm going to establish the puddle again. And back it off slowly. Now that divot's gone.
Yeah.
Okay? Now this one, I'm going to add fill rod.
Okay.
So something else that we really should be doing that we're not going to do, metal prep. Okay? A lot of people are going to be on you about, did you clean it? What's the metal prep like? You can wipe it down with acetone, and that will help remove a lot of oils and stuff like that. But honestly, for what we're doing right now, this is just fine. Okay? It's a scrap material. We're just running beads. We're getting the basics. Okay? It's not going to space. It's not going on a plane.
No.
So now this is 40-43 filler rod. And one of the things that I really like to get people to learn when I'm teaching them in shops is how to run the filler rod through your hand.
Yeah, I was struggling with that.
Okay, and so the way I learned in a night. I brought a filler rod home with me from work, place it in my fingertips like this, and I pinch it with my thumb, and take your glove off. Now, what hand do you TIG weld? What hand is your torch hand? So take your left hand off, there you go. Okay, so now you have that in, and your hand's fully extended out. Pinch your thumb, pull your fingers in, stretch them out again. Pinch, grab, pull, pinch, grab, pull, pinch, grab, pull, pinch, grab, pull. Practice that. When you can do this consistently, you can run a full length rod without starting and stopping. That's going to improve the overall appearance of your weld. So now remember when I was talking about how the weld flattens out after you move? It's going to be a little more apparent on this one. Okay? So I'm going to establish the arc. I'm going to dip it. It's going to bubble up. I'm going to move the torch a little bit. It's going to start to flatten out. I'm going to dip it again, okay? It's kind of like a keyhole when you're doing oxy-fuel and you're still just learning to get going on it. This oxide burn is nice and consistent down there too.
Yeah.
Now, I was getting down here, my steps are getting a little more inconsistent to what they are, but the weld's nice and shiny. There's no major highs and lows. The untrained person would be like, wow, that's pretty good. That's amazing. So
That's what I'm thinking.
yeah, but for me, it's just, you know what? I'm better than that. I need to practice a little more too. So now you can kind of actually visibly see the difference between a fused weld and one with fill rod. So let Jesse try a couple to see what it's about. All right, so something just happened. Here, I have Jesse just finishing off lap weld just to kind of practice a little bit. And he started his arc, and then this happened. Big ball on the end. We're gonna cut that off, flip that off. What happened was you didn't have enough heat in your puddle before you introduced the fill rod. So you started to melt the fill rod before it can even touch the puddle. So now you want to make sure you get that puddle going nice and liquefied.
Okay.
Before you add the fill rod.
Oh, okay.
Try again. Wide open, more. You know what? For your first time doing aluminum, that's not horrible. Okay? See, like lap joints are a little trickier. You need to keep moving, but that's not bad. Your heat input is a little inconsistent, your speed's a little inconsistent, but you know what? That's not bad. Aluminum is a little tricky to pick up the habit. Pretty happy so far with his progression, and I hope you guys are doing good too. So Jesse just finished his first fusion weld, and you can see here the puddle really kind of started getting wide and getting away from him here. So that's just your kind of heat travel ratio. It's too much heat for how slow he was traveling, and he couldn't dial the pedal in for his travel speed. So if you can't dial your pedal in for how slow you're going, you need to increase your travel speed a little bit so you don't end up with a giant flat part of your weld here. And you can see the smoke on the edges here. That's because he dipped the tungsten a little bit. Okay, and that's just like little tattletale for aluminum when you start getting it. On the back side, you can see how one part of the plate was there's a lot of penetration there, and then the other side of the plate there's no penetration. Here it's a little even, but over here it's not, and that translates to over here. This side of the puddle is really down on that side, and so to me that his angle was a little wrong. You weren't really perpendicular to your weld. You probably had your angle just a little bit, and you got into like a little bit of a comfort groove, and you started rocking it over. So that could have been, instead of doing a nice even travel like this, you were resting on something, and then instead of sliding your hand everything evenly, you start twisting. Okay? And if you start twisting, then it changes your angle and your inclination. So that's just something to practice. See if you can add some fill rod on this one, okay? Okay. Remember, you're just going to get the puddle going, dip, move, dip, move, and get the puddle nice and warm before you introduce the fill rod. You want the puddle established before you do that.
Okay.
That's pretty good, Jesse. I'm impressed, man. That's, for your first time adding fill rod. Ooh. I jinxed ya.
Yeah.
I jinxed ya. Well, that happens, okay? So like you said, right there, then your heat input's getting a little too much for your travel speed. So you can back off your heat, try to tighten up that puddle again, okay? But you have to keep moving. And then you get to the end, and then now the material, there's less material there, so it gets hot faster. So you need to start backing that pedal off just a little bit more.
Like a little bit of practice.
Well, you know what? From your very first aluminum weld to right here, that was really good. That part, you know what? Don't worry about it. That low guy, don't worry about that low guy. And same with the end. You know what? For never touching TIG welding, to being able to actually do that in an hour of practice, that's not bad. And it takes time. It takes time to get good at TIG welding. It takes time to get good at anything that you actually want to do. You know, just don't give up and just keep practicing. The reason why I kind of wanted to approach a video this way is because I've seen many different videos on, you know, tips for beginners and all this stuff, but it's by a guy who's been welding, you know, for 20 years, you know, and it's just like you lose so many things of when you were starting, like silly questions to ask and what's the very basic and things like that, that you can really only get by teaching somebody hands-on. So hope you enjoy it. Thanks a lot. If this helped you out, you know, let me know. If you have any questions about anything like this, drop a comment and I'll do my best to get back to you. All right, thanks for watching. See you again.
I didn't know what to do.